I always struggled to get my arms to grow. For a long time, I didn't get stronger on any arm exercise, and I was pissed off with the lack of growth that I saw. But since then, I've changed one thing with my training, and I genuinely think it's the reason that my arms are now one of the most developed muscle groups on my body. Now, I'm going to guess something about your workouts. I reckon that you're doing a push-pull leg split. On push days, you train chest first, then shoulders, then triceps. And on pull days, you train back first and then biceps. Or if you're doing an upper body, lower body split, on your upper days, you're doing chest and back before you get to shoulders, triceps, and biceps. That was exactly how I used to train. On my push days, I did chest first, and that would dominate the workout. Similarly, on pull days, I'd do back first, and that would just take up the majority of the session. That was problematic for a couple of reasons. First, I was never training my shoulders, triceps, and biceps in a fresh state. For example, on push day, I would only ever train my shoulders and triceps after having obliterated my chest off the bone. Of course, when you're training chest, your shoulders and triceps are also being indirectly trained. So by the time I got to shoulders and triceps in the workout, they were already so fatigued from the fact that I'd already done like 12 extremely hard sets of chest. That meant that I couldn't push as hard on those shoulders and triceps exercises when I got to them because they were already pre-fatigued from all the chest work that I've done. Now, when it comes to muscle growth, one of the most important things is to maximize the amount of mechanical tension you expose to your muscle. In other words, you want to maximize the amount of tension either through weight or reps that you're exposing your muscles to in order to make them grow. Being able to lift heavier maximizes that amount of mechanical tension, which is very favorable for muscle growth. So on push days, when I only did shoulders and triceps after hitting chest, and on pull days, when I did biceps only after having hit back, it meant that I was not maximizing the amount of mechanical tension I exposed to those muscle groups because I simply couldn't lift as heavy because of the level of fatigue I'd built up from training chest and back respectively. Also, assuming that you're training pretty hard, by the time you get to those exercises for shoulders, triceps, and biceps in your workout, it's likely that you're pretty wrecked by that stage anyways. For me, when I get to shoulders and triceps on push day, at that stage, I'm like, I cannot be bothered and I would rather go home right now than train. So because you're already tired at that stage, you're probably not going to push as hard on those muscles because you're just tired. But also because you're tired by that later stage in the workout, you're more likely to maybe cut off a couple of sets that you had programmed into your workout and that you were meant to do. But because you're so tired by the time you get to that point in the workout, you don't do what you were supposed to do. So a lot of times I found myself maybe only doing 1 or 2 sets of triceps when in reality I had 6 sets of triceps that I was programmed to do. That's obviously going to stifle their growth because you're not hitting them as hard as you are supposed to in order to elicit growth. Leading on from that is that if you are a busy person, as most people are, you don't have all day to spend in the gym. So for me, I often cut my workouts short because I have to go to work or class. And if I don't, I'll just be late. When I cut my workouts short, it's those exercises that fall later on in the workout that I don't do. And those are the shoulders, triceps, and biceps. So as a matter of practicality, the fact that you might have to cut some of your workouts short means that your shoulders, triceps, and biceps are the muscle groups that become even more neglected. Now, the reason that I include shoulders in this discussion of arm growth is that realistically, when you look at someone's arms, half of it is really the shoulder. If you look at a guy and go, wow, that guy's got huge arms, it's not necessarily the fact that the biceps and triceps are so big, but it's that the shoulders are quite big. Also, as I've discussed, shoulders are often neglected with the biceps and triceps. So it's for that reason I include them in this discussion. So what's the solution? I changed my split so that I now have a dedicated day where I train both shoulders and arms. So my split is push, pull, sharms, which is shoulders and arms in the one session, and then legs. And you repeat that. You can do 4 days on, 1 day off, or you can do 8 days on, 1 day off, or you can do 8 days on, 1 day off, 4 days on, 1 day off, and repeat it that way. The reason why including a dedicated sharms day in my split worked so well was because I was able to train those muscle groups in a fresh, non-fatigued state. That meant that my output in terms of strength and reps on shoulders and arms exercises was so much higher than it otherwise would have been if I had continued to do them in a fatigued state on a push or a pull day. It allowed me to maximize the amount of mechanical tension that I was placing on my shoulders, biceps, and triceps that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to expose my muscles to if I had continued just with the push-pull leg split. You've also got way more energy at the beginning of your workouts than you do towards the end. So by giving shoulders and arms its own dedicated day, you can put your highest levels of energy into working those muscles. And that's obviously going to bode well for their overall growth. Having that dedicated day also means that if you ever have to cut a push or a pull day short, you're still getting sufficient volume for the shoulders, biceps, and triceps. So if you had to cut a pull day short, and as a consequence of that, you didn't train biceps on that pull day, the fact that you have a sharms day still allows you to get sufficient volume in for your biceps. So how do you structure a sharms day? As I said before, realistically, the shoulders take up about half of the arm. So I like to dedicate about half of the sharms day to shoulders. I'll do a heavy overhead press, either dumbbells or barbell, 4 sets. Then some form of lateral raises, can be on the cables, can be dumbbells. If I've got time, I'll also try fit in another mid-delt exercise, like these overhead lateral raises. Then I'll do reverse flies for the rear delt, either on cables or the machine. After finishing shoulders, I then like to move into biceps before doing triceps. The reason is, when you're doing shoulder exercises, you still are working your triceps a little bit. So by doing biceps before you do triceps, it means that you're allowing your triceps to rest somewhat so that you can still maximize output on those triceps exercises once you get to them. And I'll probably do 1 or 2 bicep and tricep exercises. But don't forget, you can play around with how you structure your sharms sessions. If you were strapped for time on push day, for example, and you didn't get to train triceps that day, then on the sharms day, you might want to dedicate more of the time to triceps to ensure that you're getting sufficient volume in for them. By keeping it flexible, you can make sure that you're giving adequate volume to muscle groups that you might have neglected earlier on in the week. And at the same time, you can make sure you're not giving junk volume to muscles that you've already adequately trained. So I genuinely believe that putting a sharms day into my split was the reason that my arms blew up. If you enjoyed or learnt anything from this video, please consider subscribing because we are getting to 4,000 subscribers soon. Let me know what your thoughts are on this topic and whether you'll be implementing a sharms day into your routine. That's all from me, and I'll see you in the next one.